Is the world order we've known for decades finally breaking apart? From Gaza to Georgia, Washington to Warsaw, the pillars of international stability are shaking like never before. In May 2025, we're witnessing something unprecedented. Not just isolated crises, but a synchronized unraveling of the systems that have governed our world since the Cold War's end. The United States has lost its AAA credit rating from all major agencies for the first time in history. Israel faces unprecedented international isolation even from traditional allies. European unity is being tested by migration pressures and political extremism. Meanwhile, authoritarian powers are coordinating efforts to destabilize democracies through hybrid warfare tactics. What makes this moment different isn't the individual crises, it's their interconnection. When Britain suspends trade talks with Israel while simultaneously negotiating closer EU ties post-Brexit, when South Africa's president is humiliated in the White House, while Ethiopia dismantles its main opposition party, when tech giants battle over AI supremacy, while retailers brace for tariff wars, we're seeing the emergence of a new, more chaotic global reality. This isn't about predicting doom, it's about understanding the tectonic shifts reshaping our world and what they mean for the decade ahead. The Gaza blockade has evolved from a regional crisis into a litmus test for international law. After 11 weeks of total blockade, Israel's minimal aid allowance, what the UN calls a drop in the ocean, has triggered unprecedented responses. Britain didn't just condemn. It suspended trade negotiations and sanctioned West Bank settlers. France and Canada joined in threatening concrete actions against what they termed egregious military expansion. Netanyahu's declaration of taking control of all of Gaza while ordering Khan Yunis evacuations for an unprecedented attack signals not just military escalation but diplomatic isolation. The assassination of 2 Israeli embassy workers in Washington by a gunman shouting "Free Palestine," now under FBI terrorism investigation, shows how regional conflicts are spawning global violence. Expert analysis from the Council on Foreign Relations suggests this represents the most significant fracture in Western Israeli relations since 1956. Dr. Sarah Mitchell of Georgetown's School of Foreign Service notes, "Traditional allies are drawing red lines that would have been unthinkable even 5 years ago. Opposition voices within Israel are growing louder. Former Mossad chief Tamir Pardo warned that diplomatic isolation poses a greater existential threat than Hamas rockets." Social media trends show Israeli protests gaining momentum, with over 2 million engagements in the past week alone. America's credit downgrade to AA1 by Moody's marks a watershed moment. With 30-year Treasury yields jumping above 5%, the highest in 18 months, and the dollar weakening, the implications ripple globally. Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill Act promises to increase deficits further, even as markets signal alarm. This isn't happening in isolation. Britain faces 3.5% inflation, with water bills surging 26%. The economic pressures are reshaping political calculations everywhere. Argentina's libertarian president Javier Milei gained ground in midterms by promising radical economic surgery. Portugal's centre-right government held on by embracing hard-right anti-immigration rhetoric. Financial analyst Rebecca Chen from Morgan Stanley observes, "We're seeing a decoupling of political promises from economic realities. Markets are pricing in sustained instability. The corporate response varies dramatically. Home Depot pledges to absorb tariff costs, while Target calls price increases a last resort. Trump's ominous warning to Walmart, 'I'll be watching,' after they suggested raising prices, shows how political pressure is distorting market mechanisms. From Minsk to Moscow, authoritarian regimes are pioneering new forms of hybrid warfare. Lithuania's unprecedented lawsuit against Belarus at the International Court of Justice for weaponizing migration represents just the tip of the iceberg. Poland and the Baltic states report systematic efforts to push migrants across borders, destabilizing their societies. The pattern extends beyond Europe. El Salvador's foreign agents bill targeting NGOs mirrors legislation in Russia, Venezuela and Georgia. Ethiopia's deregistration of the Tigrayan People's Liberation Front eliminates the main opposition party. These aren't isolated incidents, but coordinated strategies to eliminate democratic space. Meanwhile, democratic elections show increasing polarization. Poland's presidential race saw hard-right candidate Karol Nawrocki nearly match liberal Rafał Trzaskowski, despite trailing in polls. Romania's runoff required all centrist forces to unite against the hard-right's anti-NATO candidate. Political scientist Dr. James Morrison from Oxford notes, "We're witnessing the globalization of authoritarian tactics. What works in one country is quickly adopted by others." Microsoft's addition of Elon Musk's Grok AI to Azure, potentially undermining its OpenAI partnership, signals a fragmenting tech landscape. OpenAI's $6.5 billion acquisition of Jony Ives I.O. promises to completely reimagine what it means to use a computer, according to Sam Altman. But the tech story isn't just about innovation. It's about vulnerability. Marks and Spencer's £300 million loss from a cyber attack that crippled digital logistics shows how dependent modern economies have become on fragile systems. Bloomberg's 90-minute terminal outage disrupted global markets, reminding us that financial infrastructure remains surprisingly brittle. The stablecoin regulation advancing through the US Senate represents government's belated attempts to control digital finance. Cattle's record $5.3 billion Hong Kong listing shows China's continued dominance in strategic technologies like EV batteries, even as Western automakers like Honda scale back electric vehicle ambitions. Britain's net migration falling to 431,000, half the previous year, reflects tightening borders everywhere. Spain's crackdown on Airbnb, removing 66,000 listings, shows how mass tourism and housing affordability have become political flashpoints. The Trump-Putin call that amounted to no more than puffery confirms what many suspected. Great power competition has replaced cooperation. Russia's massive drone attacks on Kiev continue, even as Trump suggests leaving Russia and Ukraine to it. These aren't separate stories, but interconnected symptoms of a world system under unprecedented strain. Traditional alliances fracture while new, often troubling partnerships emerge. The center struggles to hold as extremes gain ground. What we're witnessing isn't temporary turbulence, but structural transformation. The post-Cold War consensus, free markets, democratic expansion, international law, faces challenges from multiple directions simultaneously. Economic nationalism collides with global supply chains, democratic norms clash with authoritarian innovation, technological progress outpaces regulatory frameworks. Former Swedish Prime Minister Carl Bildt's recent assessment rings true. We're entering an era where the abnormal becomes normal. The question isn't whether the old order will survive, it's what will replace it. For individuals and nations alike, adaptability becomes the supreme virtue. Poland's ambassador to London, Piotr Wilczek, captured it best. History has taught us not to confuse a dictator's age with his appetite, nor to build détente on the ruins of other countries' sovereignty. The emerging world order will be messier, more contested, and less predictable than what we've known. Understanding these dynamics isn't just academic, it's essential for navigating the turbulent decade ahead. What's your take on these seismic shifts? Comment below with the crisis you think will define the next decade. Subscribe for weekly deep dives into the forces reshaping our world, because in times of change, understanding is your greatest asset.